Bonjour amigos, welcome, and this is Blitzboy HD. Preliminary. Before we begin, I first must give you, dear viewer, teacher or otherwise, some preliminary remarks about my forthcoming presentation. I regret to inform you that I have spent, unfortunately, not enough time and effort into this here research project as I should have, as I was busy with matters of outside concern. Nevertheless, I hope to salvage what can be and, in a rather unique style that keeps me engaged, present to you, a discussion of car dependency, a topic I am soon to make a video on. The presentation you see before you shall be split into 3 parts, an introduction, a body, and a summary. The body shall be split further as the introduction shall specify. Without further ado, and relaxing music to comfort us, along with a style to ensure that, whether or not my here presentation is to be admired, it is to be remembered, let us begin. Introduction. By car dependency is meant, the tendency of city infrastructure to be built around the movement of cars, as opposed to infrastructure built around walkability and mass transit, and is the main topic of current presentation. We shall, through the next few minutes or so, view some aspects of this ghoulish style of design. First, we shall discuss the consequences. Next, we shall go over some comparisons that should give unto us many solutions that could be of implementation. And finally, the latest developments right here, in the garden of our dreams. Cars and consequences. Cars may have to their fame some enjoyable features, but they are, as it remains, much too incompatible with human settlements, both socially and economically. I would discuss their impacts upon the climate, but electric cars may limit that to an extent. I should mention before moving on, however, that cars are still the largest source of carbon dioxide emissions in the country, with a share of around 28% in 2021, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Social costs. In this here Strong Towns article, entitled, The Negative Consequences of Car Dependency, Andrew Price lays out 5 such consequences, 3 of which relate to social life, social isolation, public health effects, and indult discrimination. Social alienation. To no surprise it should come, that forcing people into miniature rooms for most of their travels creates a social problem. As sharing writer explains, quote, I felt like I was traveling through town in my own isolated box. He goes a little further, quote, I had to go out of my way and place myself in public to interact with my neighbors and others that lived in my town, rather than it being a natural part of my day. The places where I shopped and spent time targeted my demographic, so I was constantly surrounded by people that were similar to me. I would take it a step further. I would argue that for children, who simply cannot drive, car-dependent suburbs especially, can simply put them under house arrest until they are old enough to acquire wheels. Especially now, considering that many families cannot afford to have a stay-at-home parent, this can be severely isolating. Health effects. Cars can affect your health in 2 ways. By killing you slowly, or by killing you. They may take their time with air congestion, leaving the clean air around them in tatters, or by replacing, quote, the primary form of exercise throughout human history, the act of getting from A to B, with mostly sitting in a seat, thereby inviting obesity. They are also elite agents of the Grim Reaper. In fact, the most elite, for Americans between the ages of 5 and 34. Discrimination. Not even a single movement is required, for it to go without saying, that a society that requires car ownership is, to use a metaphor, putting ketchup on spaghetti of those who cannot drive for whatever reason. Named in the article are, quote, the poor, the young, the elderly, the disabled. I should clarify, that it was not this way by accident, but that is for later. Noise pollution. One not mentioned in current article, but mentioned in an article from the European Environment Agency, is noise pollution, which according to some World Health Organization findings, quote, is the second largest environmental cause of health problems, just after the impact of air pollution. This is mainly due to the effect of loud noise on mental health. Spacing. Yet another aspect I would like to bring to your attention, is the issue of space. Car-dependent infrastructure disrupts much of the usable space within a given city. Cars, given their size, are really inefficient when compared to buses and trains in occupation of identical space, resulting in gigantic amounts of traffic. In addition, is the amount of space required for parking lots, or even for the most basic part, roads. Economic costs. When we look at the devastating impact cars have on our economy, we can dissect into two areas, on our individuals, and on our societies. I think we should begin with the latter. Societal. The reason I ended the previous section with spacing is that, due to the amount of space we dedicate to our cars, which do not generate any revenue, our cities end up on a path to financial insolvency. This is the core of the Strong Towns message, although I would like to in addition, bring to your attention, Urban 3. They have gone on adventures aplenty to find whether cities could recover the costs of infrastructure and services. What he found was that, densely packed, often poorer communities, were financially stable, but wealthy suburbs were a leech on the economy. This leads not only to financial insolvency, but to a clear display of classism. It seems as though our style of design should really be called Grand Theft Automobile. Personal. Following the expense of housing, the largest expense for an individual or a household is transportation. Returning to the article, it is argued that the quote, average yearly cost of owning a car is between $6,957 and $11,039. This is quite the burden, and to think that a family may need more than one, is horror. Personally, of my opinion I declare, cars take away your freedom to truly experience the city around you, and most importantly, to walk on the edge of a pavement, which we all do. It is no wonder that in a song dedicated to Satan, one of his lines involved an invitation to ride. Contrasting cultures. The optimal pick for whenever we want to discuss how much better our infrastructure could be, is the Netherlands. This is the philosophy behind the YouTube channel Not Just Bikes, run by a man named Jason Slaughter. He typically compares different aspects of American city design when compared to the Netherlands. One such comparison is the absolute blasphemy which to us seems akin to scripture, the Strode. A Strode is found everywhere in the States, yet almost nowhere in the Netherlands. It is born of an unholy union between street and road, and disrespects both equally. In the Netherlands, they make it very apparent that roads are for mobility, while streets are for activity. Since we are discussing the Netherlands, we must discuss their cycling infrastructure. I once heard a fine joke, that to the Dutch, cycling is an act of patriotism. To pour out my honesty, I wish more countries would do that. Accompanying this patriotic act, is patriotism-worthy infrastructure, including a highway, dedicated simply for bicycles. Another comparison that comes to mind, is China. I need to be careful here, since I am aware China is not entirely to be viewed as friendly by many of my potential viewers, but it simply must be said. Their development of a high-speed railway, with more high-speed rail than the remainder of the world combined speaks volumes. We may never quite catch up, but I should be so fortunate to witness the end of praising anti-intelligent ideas such as these. Perhaps the comparison best tailored to the United States, is the United States. To better understand, we need only look at our neighboring Emerald. Today, Seattle has a tram network with a total of 6.1 kilometers. Back in 1891, the total length was around 126 kilometers, more than 20 times longer, all throughout the city. That is also not to mention the much more relaxed zoning laws, allowing people to live closer to where they worked, a rare featuring in today's day and age across the country. Embracing tradition. After all the depression, this here be a happy section, so let us turn on some smooth jazz and enjoy the ride, preferably in a public transit vehicle. Quote, "You could not live with your own failure," says the railway. Where did that bring you? Back to me. Over the past few years, cities throughout the world have been attempting to lower car dependency. One city I would like to mention is Barcelona, which started an experiment of superblocks. A superblock is a grid of 3x3, with only car-free streets on the inside, and roads on the outside. It does not have to be a perfect square, but often is. According to the World Health Organization, the results were a decrease in air and noise pollution, an increase in social interaction and quality of sleep, and more. I also desire to discuss this here article, from Energy Cities, which argues that they also liberated 92% of public space that was once spooned to leechful cars. To end off this particular section, let us return, once again, to our neighboring Emerald. Patrick Taylor of The Urbanist writes in glorious article, "New data shows Seattleites are ditching their cars for bikes and transit." In the article he notes, of the 50 grandest cities in America, Seattle saw the largest decline in car ownership, of about 3%. Additionally, as this graph should show, Seattle had the largest increase in bus ridership throughout the country. All of this has contributed to Seattle being the 8th most walkable city in the US, with a score of 74. There is still a ways to go, but it seems the next step is for Seattle to become a 15-minute city. Additionally, there are also grassroots organizations to keep the city on track, no pun intended, such as Seattle Subway and Lid I-5. When it comes to grassroots organizations, I must again bring to your attention, Strong Towns, who are leading the coalition against car dependency. In their words, bringing about a bottom-up revolution. Their success shows how much Americans wish to end a design that brought to their cities insolvency, classism, racism, ableism, and just general depression. Comrades, let us join together to bring Armageddon onto the work of the devil, to end once and for all car dependency. Summary.
Hello, I am Mr. Mishti, and I would like to thank you for sitting to my presentation. And right now I am going to summarize what the presentation was about. The presentation started off by saying that I was that I did not put all my effort into this video because I was busy with other things. That being said, within the given time I did try to put as much effort as I could, but the given time was of course only one day. That being said, I do like to think that this was of a higher quality than what I usually do, because to be honest, I really enjoyed this project and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm trying to do this uncut, so I'm struggling a little. In this video, we discussed the topic of car dependency, a topic that I love to talk about because it does help me take out my anger that I built up simply looking at what's around us. Firstly, we talked about the problems with car dependency. I went over a few examples, social costs, economic costs as well, and I made a lot of references to strong towns because they were the ones who really inspired me to speak about these things, and that is why I've made a YouTube series where I talk about them. I also then talked about a contrast. Firstly, I contrasted today's America with today's Netherlands, because the Netherlands 30 years ago, they were actually a lot like us, but then they decided to walk in a more walkable direction, whereas unfortunately we had very powerful car companies that prevented what could have been done. Next, I also talked about China, and yes, I know China is a very controversial country, but I think we can agree that their high-speed railway is possibly the best system in the world. And lastly, I talked about America, because America at one point actually used to have the best public transportation in the world, but that is not the case unfortunately today. That being said, it is a good era to look back on to see what we can learn, although we have to acknowledge not everything was good about that era. Of course, this was a time when segregation was still going about, and also we discussed that segregation is still very much around today and impacted by car dependency. Also, then I discussed some recent trends, both in some parts of the world, such as Barcelona, where they're moving into superblocks. I think I would like to see some superblocks in Seattle. And speaking of Seattle, we ended off by talking about what trends are going on within Seattle. We have one called the Seattle Subway and one called Lid I-5. And Seattle Subway, I actually have a mug. I'll maybe put up a picture if I have one. I actually got a mug from the company, and I think it's a very good looking mug. I think you should get one as well, because mugs are very trustworthy. And I also have this poster. Let me see if I can. This poster is actually meant to be an idea for what a Seattle subway system can look like, and I hope you will agree that it is a very kick-ass design. To end off, I know that this presentation wasn't the most professional, wasn't in a very orthodox style, and I am not sure if it will even be acceptable, but I would like to take my last moment to say that I very much enjoyed it, and I hope that if you are a viewer that you enjoyed this video as well. And I do want to thank you, the teacher. The rest of you can stop watching now. I do want to thank you, the teacher, for giving us a very enjoyable semester, and I do wish you good beings for the rest of your career. As in Latin we say, valete. The slides to the original, the slides that I used in the video, where the links are, I will link that in the description along with many other links. But of course there will be also a slide within the slides that holds all the links to the various resources that are used in this video. Thank you very much.